What's going on, YouTube? Designer Malcolm here with a brand new series called Design School Dropout. This is for all of my creatives, my creative entrepreneurs, my design studio owners. Doesn't matter if you're a graphic designer, fashion designer, illustration designer, animator, it does not matter. These fundamentals are just meant to help you and give you a baseline that you can stand on and may even help you prepare to the next levels in your career or your entrepreneurship journey. Now, in today's lesson, episode 1, I'm calling this Design Basics, and we're going to go over some typography essentials. So let's get it.
I got tell my bestie, someone call my bestie, say I found my bestie, link up make the check bleed, you know that I'm smoking dope, I'll be hot till next week, no I had to let her go, cause she can't arrest me. Tell her what's up, tell her what's up, tell her it's on, tell her it's on, tell her what's up, tell her what's up, tell her it's on, tell her it's on, tell her what's up, tell her what's up, tell her it's on, tell her it's on, tell her what's up, tell her what's up, tell her it's on.
What is up, YouTube family? Designer Malcolm here, and today I want to introduce you to a game-changing AI toolkit that I use every single day in my businesses. It's my secret weapon to staying ahead in a competitive marketplace. You see, we are living in the age of AI, and here's the truth. If you're not leveraging this incredible technology in your design studio, creative freelance business, or agency, you're setting yourself up to fall behind. Slow businesses lose, period. As a creative entrepreneur, I get it. I've been there, juggling a dozen different tools just to keep my business running. I had Notion for a knowledge base, DocuSign for invoicing, Calendly for scheduling, Webflow for websites, ClickUp for project management, School for my community, Slack for my team communication, and HubSpot for my CRM. The list was endless, and the chaos was real. This kind of tech bloat is a serious problem in our industry, and honestly, it's unnecessary. When your workflow is scattered across multiple tools, your efficiency tanks, and running your business feels like trying to sprint through a swamp. That's why I made the switch. You see, Lancer OS is an all-in-one AI-powered toolkit built specifically for design studios, creative entrepreneurs, freelancers, and agencies. With Lancer OS, you can seamlessly automate client acquisition, streamline project management, improve client communication, send invoices, and honestly, there's so much more, all from one powerful platform. What's the goal? Well, the goal is to help 10,000 businesses like yours eliminate tech bloat, cut costs, and operate like a well-oiled machine. If you're serious about taking your business into the AI age and staying ahead of the curve, now is the time to act. As a part of my design family, and I love you guys, you're getting exclusive access to a 30-day free trial of Lancer OS. Don't wait until you're left behind. Join the 10,000 army already transforming their business today with Lancer OS. So let's build something incredible together, and let's change the industry. All right, welcome to the first lesson in the Design School Dropout series. As you know, I am designer Malcolm here to help you grow your design agency, creative business, and to even just help you become a better designer if that's what your goal is. Today, we're going to talk about typography. Now, the reason why we're going to talk about typography because it's one of those fundamental aspects of design that once you get it, it can really enhance the power of whatever you're creating. Um, it's quite easy to overlook because who wants to focus on letters, right? But it's important to know that when you are working with typography and fonts, it's all about creating visual harmony. The goal is to guide the user or reader's attention, and you want to set the tone. And in more depth, you essentially are setting the tone for your message. So Think about this, like if you are writing a letter to, let's say, an employer or to a CEO, are you going to use some sort of crazy script font with fancy serifs? No, you're going to keep it professional. You're going to keep it very clear, legible. So this is just some things to think about as obviously an anecdotal example, but when you're working with typography, it's important to think about who you're communicating to and that visual harmony. You know, I heard this saying, I believe I read it on X, but it was fantastic. And shout out to Christo because this is what something he said, and I'm not probably going to butcher this, but what Christo said, he's like, fonts are like friends, having a bunch of friends or having a bunch of best friends, but you really only need one true friend, right? Or maybe two. So we often have a massive library of fonts that we like to go to or whatnot, but you really find yourself only using a few. So, you know, I like the school of thought that less is more. And so let's hop into this. I'm going to give you some tips, some fundamentals to help you get going. Within this quick lesson, we're going to talk about why typography matters. We're going to go into some of the anatomy of typography. We're going to talk about how to choose the right typeface, how to master readability, how to avoid common typography mistakes, and then lastly, pairing fonts like a pro. So, typography is the silent communicator design. It sits almost like it's invisible, right? You see it, but you don't really pay attention to it unless it's awful and it doesn't work with whatever you're creating. When you think about typography, understand that it's everywhere. It's on products in your house, it's on your fashion, it's on your food, it's everywhere. It's on the screen that you're looking at when you're on your computer. You can't get away from it. And all of these elements of typography that you see around your life, around your world, all of those choices of the typography to be used and leveraged were intentional. You got to think about this. The Kellogg cereal box, right? They didn't just pick a random type font to put on that box. It was planned, it was designed, and then it was executed. And in a lot of cases, some brands evolve and change their typography over time. Good typography can make your message clear and engaging. Bad typography, well, it can confuse or even repel your audience. Think about some of those situations as a designer where you just saw type font and it was just so awful, right? And perhaps the design was good or perhaps the product was good, but that first interaction you had with an awful type font just kind of repelled you. Like I said, typography is the silent communicator. It's not something you pay attention to until it's either done horribly wrong or it's executed fantastic and flawlessly. So we're going to get into the anatomy of typography. We're going to break down. Each letter has specific parts that influence its style and readability. So in the typography world, you have serifs. Those are the little feet at the ends of letters, common in traditional fonts like Times New Roman. You have sans serif fonts like Arial. They are clean, they are modern. I believe Helvetica is one of these, and they're without those extra strokes. Then you have ascenders and descenders. Ascenders are the tall parts of letters like H or L, and descenders are the parts that dip below the baseline, like in a G or a Y. So these are the very specific, very universal anatomy components of typography. Choosing the right typeface. Now, when you want to select a typeface, you want to consider the tone of your project. You want to think of it from a macro level. You want to understand the tone, you understand the voice, you understand the nuances you're going for. And just to give you some context, serif fonts feel classic and professional. So pause there. So think about this. What type of project or what type of product would you leverage a serif font? Write that down in the description. I'd like to hear your thoughts. This is a good exercise, right? They're perfect for formal documents, right? Perhaps it's a letter to a higher up. Perhaps it's an offer, right, or a proposal. Sans serif fonts are clean and versatile, making them ideal for digital platforms. Think about your web apps. Think about your mobile apps, right? Very, very rare do you see a serif font used. You usually see the more modern, clean sans serifs. They are versatile, though. You can use them in professional settings. You can use them in web application settings, but they're ideal for digital platforms. Then you have script fonts. On the other hand, they add elegance, but should be used sparingly to avoid clutter. Here's why. Script fonts, they're like, think about the Met Gala, right? All of those extravagant, opulent garments that come to the Met Gala. Think about that. That is a script font, right? Just an amazing amount of excitement and boldness. And so that is why I recommend you want to use those sparingly. You want to just sprinkle those in when they make sense. If you don't, you can become your design or your project can become convoluted. It can become heavily cluttered. So just something to keep in mind. Mastering readability. So I have 3 tips here for you with mastering readability. With typography, it isn't just about looks, it's also about functionality, right? What is it you're doing at the end of the day when you use typography? You're communicating. Communication is a function, right? So it's not about just looking pretty or making the design perfect, but you have to add some utility to the typography design. So I got 3 tips for you to how to make your text readable. You want to use adequate font size. Text should be easy to read without straining the eyes. Remember, if you're trying to communicate something, and it could be an important aspect of your business or design that you're trying to communicate, you want to make sure that's legible, right? Tip 2, you want to pay attention to spacing. Proper line spacing, or leading as they call it, ensures that the text isn't cramped. Similarly, letter spacing or tracking can affect clarity. So it's very important to pay attention to your spacing. It could also be called kerning, right? Tip 3, avoid long lines of text. Stick to 50 to 75 characters per line for optimal readability. Similarly, when you're like a writer, you don't want to run on sentence, right? That just causes reader fatigue. It's the same when using typography. You want to make sure that you avoid long lines of text. Break things up. Have a rhythmic cadence, right? When you use typography, right? Some long, some short, some fast, some quick, some slow. Think about that when you're executing your designs. So I have some common typography mistakes to avoid, and these could be helpful for you. And I highly recommend you study these and kind of keep these in your back pocket for your next project. So mistake 1, never stretch or distort fonts. It looks very, very unprofessional, very unprofessional. If you want to go this route, typically I would say if you're going to distort or stretch a font, The best use case for this is if you're creating a custom logo, which is completely different, right? If you're creating a custom logo, you're trying to leverage your fonts and make it unique, right? So then you're going to probably go into Illustrator. This is a process hack, and you're going to Command O, so it's going to outline the letters to create them into an outline, and you're probably going to mess around with the little points and the different curvatures of your letters and stuff. All of this is not what this is saying. That particular process is intentional, right? You're approaching that process. You're approaching kind of just disrupting this font and you're making it into something new that's cohesive for a brand or whatever. What this mistake is saying is you want to avoid stretching. You want to avoid distorting just your basic font. So if you're trying to communicate something to an individual with your basic font selection, you don't want to go stretching it. You don't want to go pulling it. Maybe opt for a taller font. Maybe opt for a more narrow or thin font. You want to find a solution. But when you start to distort and stretch, it doesn't look as clean and as professional. So there's something to keep in mind about your approach there. Mistake number 2, you want to avoid poor contrast between text and background. This is a nightmare. And, this is a big issue across all design, but a lot of this can really be seen with mobile applications. We're on our phones, we're on our devices more than anything. Excuse me. And because we're on our phones and screens more than anything, that brings up a whole book of new challenges that we have to be aware of. So it's important to keep in mind that you want to avoid poor contrast. There's tools out there that you can use like coolers. And honestly, what has helped me is having a sound understanding about color theory and how to use color, right? And this is important because digital color is going to be different than print color, right? Print color is CMYK, digital screen color is RGB. So those are things you're going to have to understand. So you're going to have different contrasting rules for your screens. You're going to have different contrasting rules for your print stuff. So really keep in mind that you want to pay attention to that, and you don't want to overlook, because you can really make the user experience or the customer experience miserable if you're not paying attention to how you contrast your text with your background. Mistake number 3, do not ignore hierarchy. This is essential. What is hierarchy, right? Well, it is the levels in which typography is used. So you got to think about it like this. I mean, we've all have probably worked in a website builder. Well, in a website builder, you have your header 1, you have your header 2, you have your header 3, then you have your paragraph. So that's hierarchy, right? It's the level of importance. And what you want to remember here is you don't want to ignore it. You want to use size and weight to guide readers through your content. So the hierarchy, right? H1, it's going to be the most important thing. Maybe that's your call to action. Maybe that's your logo. Then you're going to have a description. So that's going to come next. You don't want to have these elements competing, because that can create confusion, and it can also slow the reader, or the user or the customer. It can slow them down when they're trying to get through your content. And it's more important than ever because of our attention span. So you really need to be very privy to this, because in this day and age, if something is difficult to read and you don't have these basic fundamentals, people are just going to look right over it and skip and go to the next thing. So we're going to kind of go over in future lessons about great copy, and you can see great copy being leveraged in some very, very historic. I like ads, so I like ad creative. Ad creative is a perfect vertical to explore and to examine copy and typography. So if you want to go into that and learn more, and I can pull some stuff together and we can kind of go down that rabbit hole, like this video and comment in the subscription or comment in the comment section, add creative, just throw that in there, and maybe I'll put something together and we can kind of all explore the world of creatives. And I think it's be a good lesson that you can apply to your digital products or even to your physical products. So this is what not to do. Now there's many more, and I'm not here to overwhelm you because you want to keep it simple at first, especially if you're new to design. Don't overwhelm yourself. You want to keep things simple so you can execute. And the best way you're going to learn is, I'm going to talk to you and you're probably going to pick up some nuggets for me. But the best way you're going to learn is when you're in the field and you're actually applying this stuff. So next, we're going to talk about pairing fonts like a pro. I'm talking pro card, right? So I have 3 tips for you here. I'm going to keep it simple. First tip, combine a serif font with a sans serif font for a balanced look, right? It's going to offer a nice balance. It's not going to be too much of a serif. It's not going to be too much of a sans serif, but you're going to have balance there. And balance is actually one of the core pillars of design, right? Balance, unity. We'll go into those in another lesson. But, balance is key, right? Very often, you're going to want to achieve balance in your design. Now, one may argue you may want to have like a asymmetrical approach. You really only see that in fashion. But even with asymmetry, sometimes there is a level of balance there. So I don't want to get too far off, but balance is essential in design. And I would almost say default to creating balanced work before you break the rule. So master the rule, master the concept of balance before you go trying to break the rules. Now, me, myself, I was always trying to break the rules. I would do that all the time in design school. But one lesson that I could give you if you're on the come up, or even if you're vetted and still in your profession, allow your and even if you're in your profession, you might want to break the rules because you could be one of those individuals who just buy the book. And I think we can often get into this box as designers of being rigid and being by the book. And to me, at least for my own sake, that often kind of dilutes creativity. So first, I would say master balance and then explore outside of that. Tip number 2, limit yourself to 2 to 3 fonts per project to avoid visual chaos. Simply put, less is more. There's probably all types of cool fonts and cool new fonts coming out. And actually, I want to mention there's a very fantastic website that I've used for years. It's called DaFont. And I'm all about breaking down the gatekeepers. I hate gatekeepers. So as we go through this series, there's going to be multiple videos of different ideas and different concepts we'll talk about. But one resource that I like is DaFont. Now, there's probably other ones out there, but I've always used DaFont. Now, some of those fonts have what's called, they're like license free, so you can use them for free on personal projects. But if you do want a commercial license, support the creator, and you can do it that way. But the reason why you want to limit it to 2 or 3 is I have this idea, this concept called design management. I believe less is more. The less you have to manage, the better. So if you can keep things simple, right, it'll make execution and it'll make the design process a lot smoother. And then 2, it'll avoid that visual chaos. And visual chaos can creep very quickly if you don't keep it in check. Now, tip number 3. This may be contrary to popular belief, but so like industry people might have their way or their opinion on this. But I like to say, hey, use tools like Google Fonts or Canva's font pairing guide for inspiration. You want to get inspiration from wherever you can. There's probably other tools out there. I'm sure Adobe has something out there, but yeah, the goal is you want to use their pairing guides. Google's pretty much all over the web, right? Canva's pairing guide is a great source for inspiration. I'm not saying do all your designs or design in Canva, but it is a powerful web tool that a lot of people leverage. And so leveraging their pairing guide could be essential. There's great literature out there for the nerds. I'm a nerd, so whatever. But there's great literature out there on typography and fonts. I may or may not leave it in the description. We'll see. But it's just something to keep in mind, when you're trying to pair your fonts like a pro. All right, final takeaways. So, typography is art and science. Typography is a blend of art and science. By mastering its principles, you can evolve your designs and make your message unforgettable. Look, I'm designer Malcolm here. I want to thank you for tuning in for this design school dropout series. I hope you got some value here. Please hit the bell. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Leave a comment below. And I'm going to have another video for you to watch up here somewhere, left or right, I don't know, that you can click on. That's another video in this series. So we'll see you. Stay tuned, and the vibes.